Welcome back for another deep dive, where we dig into some fascinating source material you've shared. Today, we're heading straight into the desert. You know, these landscapes that are stark, beautiful, but also unsettling.
Definitely. And you've brought us three really distinct first-hand accounts set right there. Encounters that range from, well, just unexpected to genuinely terrifying.
Right. So our mission today is to unpack these experiences. We want to find the common threads, maybe ask some deeper questions about vulnerability in these isolated places.
And the mysteries the desert seems to hold.
Exactly. So we've got a story about a high school senior's urban exploration trip that went badly wrong.
And some Mojave mine shafts.
Then there's a couple whose peaceful camping trip turned into, well, a nightmare.
Yeah, a really scary one.
And finally, a guy's really unsettling encounter on a lonely Arizona road.
The one that hints at maybe a hidden family history.
That's the one. So three very different angles on the desert experience.
Okay, so the sources, they're all from the same place, right? A YouTube transcript.
Yeah, from a channel called Mr. Nightmare. First one details that high school trip, finding the mine, the terrifying sound, the escape.
And that really weird detail about the shoe afterwards.
Right, the shoe with teeth marks. We'll get into that.
Then the second source, same transcript, covers the couple camping. They hear strange howls.
Someone tries to set their tent on fire.
Yeah, seriously. And they hear more screams while escaping. Just awful.
Wow. Okay. And the third one?
Also from that transcript, it's the guy driving gets stopped by armed men in Arizona.
And the really bizarre part with his mother on the phone.
Exactly. How she seemed to talk to one of the men in Spanish, leading him to suspect she has this whole hidden past, maybe involving like criminal elements.
Okay, so three intense narratives. And for you listening, these aren't just spooky stories.
No, they offer a chance to think about, the power of place.
How fragile safety can feel in remote areas.
And just the lingering impact of the unknown, really. We're looking for those connections, those aha moments between these stories.
All right, let's dive in. Story number one, the urban exploration nightmare.
Okay, so it starts with these teenagers. They're drawn to abandoned places, looking for that, what did they call it? The vibe.
Yeah, the allure of the forgotten. And there's this one guy, Charles, who seems to be the ringleader, finding these spots.
He's described as quiet, kind of mysterious. Apparently he'd just show up with locations, and nobody really asked how he found them.
Until this time. He finds this kind of creepy Instagram account, not many photos, weird comments about mines in the Mojave.
Just a vague tip, basically, but it was enough for Charles.
Right, and he ropes in the narrator and another friend, James. They just head out based on this, vague social media post.
Which already sounds like a bad idea, heading deep into the Mojave like that.
Totally. They drive for like half an hour down this barely there dirt road. James is getting nervous, thinking maybe Charles set them up.
Understandable.
But Charles insists, and just when they're about to give up, they spot it. This half-collapsed wooden structure on a hillside.
The mine entrance. Just a dark hole held up by beams.
So the initial motivation was kind of thrill-seeking, but then they're faced with this very real, potentially dangerous place.
And the description they give is pretty vivid. You can almost feel the dust, smell that old, musty air.
They even put on masks, which tells you something.
Yeah, and they do that classic thing, throw a rock down the shaft.
Hearing it clang off metal deep below gives you that sense of depth, right? And maybe danger.
Absolutely. But they still decide to go in. What do you make of that decision?
Well, it's that mix, isn't it? Curiosity, maybe a bit of teenage invincibility.
Probably. So they start climbing down, loose ground, dodgy-looking support beams.
And it gets colder, quieter, the deeper they go, until the light from the entrance just vanishes.
Pitch black. They reach a point where the shaft levels out into tunnels. Imagine that. Just flashlight beams on rusty rails, dust, rotten wood.
Like stepping back in time, but with this heavy sense of wrongness.
And that's exactly when things take a turn. This dragging sound from the darkness ahead.
At first, the narrator isn't sure. Maybe it's just nerves.
But Charles hears it too. And then they do the absolute worst thing you could do in that situation.
Turn off the lights.
Yep. Plunged into total darkness, listening to the scraping sound getting closer. Metal or wood on stone, he said.
Oh, man. My heart would be pounding.
Then James accidentally flicks his lighter on. Panic stations.
And the sound stops.
Instantly. Dead silence. And then, bam! This loud metallic clang from deeper in the tunnel.
Whatever it was dropped what it was dragging.
That's the impression.
That's
and
right.
Immediately after that, this scream.
He described it as awful, demonic, not human.
Right. And that's it. Curiosity gone. pure terror. It's just about getting out.
Scrambling back up, not caring about the noise now, he thinks he hears footsteps behind them.
Falls, loses a shoe, injures his foot, but just keeps going. Imagine climbing that steep incline with one good foot.
It sounds horrific, that immediate flight response. It's primal, isn't it?
Totally. Faced with something that terrifying and unknown, you just run.
They make it out, thankfully, but his foot is messed up.
And then the aftermath. Days later, they go back.
And find the shoe.
Yeah, but it's torn up, shredded, and he says, with teeth marks.
Teeth marks, like bite marks. Chunks missing.
That's what he claims, and that's the part that just hangs there. No rational explanation.
They dismissed the idea of maybe a homeless person because there was no food source nearby.
Right, and the creepy Instagram account they messaged. Just silence.
It just leaves you with this deep unease. What was down there?
Exactly. It really highlights that line between adventure and real danger, especially when you're messing with the unknown.
Okay, let's shift gears to the second story. The couple camping in the desert.
A very different setup. Their goal was the opposite. Peace. Quiet, stargazing. Escaping the noise.
And the first couple of nights were just that. Perfect desert camping, warm days, cool nights.
But even in that peace, something creeps in. These sounds at night.
The howls or moans. Heard on consecutive nights.
Yeah, distant. They couldn't place them. Not quite animal, not quite human. They kind of brush it off at first.
But it plants a seed of doubt, right? That feeling that something isn't quite right.
For sure. It subtly disrupts that initial tranquility. And then the third night, everything changes.
He wakes up hearing footsteps outside the tent.
Soft steps on dry ground.
Right.
But too slow, too steady for an animal. He just freezes.
Pure fear. Listening as the steps get closer and then stop. Right outside the tent.
Can you imagine just lying there knowing someone or something is right there?
It's terrifying vulnerability. And then it gets worse.
The click of a lighter. And this orange glow through the tent fabric.
Oh no.
The flame gets bigger, brighter, like they lit something, maybe a torch.
And then they throw it at the tent.
Seems like it. The tent just goes up in flames, instantly.
It's just a direct, violent attack, no warning, no reason.
Exactly. Their reaction is pure instinct, scramble out of the burning tent.
They managed to put the fire out, somehow, but now they're outside, in the dark, totally disoriented.
And as they're running away on foot, trying to get to their truck, they hear the sounds again.
The screams. But different this time.
Yeah, he says this one starts so normally. Long drive, chatting with his mom on the phone about soccer, mundane stuff.
And then, bam, 2 pickup trucks block the road ahead.
He thinks it's an accident at first, but then another car pulls up behind him, boxing him in.
And his mom is still on the line, completely unaware. That adds such a layer of tension.
Suddenly, he's surrounded by armed men, and they start talking to him in Spanish.
Which he doesn't understand, so he's helpless, confused.
Totally vulnerable. They take his phone, keys, wallet, standard roadside robbery maybe. But then it gets weird.
He realizes the call with his mom is still connected. One of the guys in his truck seems to be listening.
And then it clicks. His mom is talking to the guy. He sees the man's lips moving, responding in Spanish.
That's just bizarre. What did you make of that?
It's completely unexpected. It shifts the whole encounter.
And the narrator thinks he hears a name repeated, R, a name he remembers his mom whispering years ago.
Right. And suddenly the other gunmen notice what's happening. They stop guarding him, huddle up, talk amongst themselves in Spanish.
Then they just give him his stuff back.
Well, almost everything. They keep the cash.
And one of them says tax with an accent.
Yeah. Like it's some kind of toll they had to collect. The whole thing is incredibly strange.
What could possibly be going on there? Why would these armed men suddenly back off after talking to his mother?
It strongly suggests she has some kind of connection, some influence with these people, whoever they are. The way they reacted, it wasn't fear in the police, surely.
And then her explanation afterwards.
Super flimsy, right. Saying she just threatened to call the cops even though they were miles from anywhere with no signal.
He doesn't buy it for a second. He starts suspecting she has this hidden past, ties to dangerous people, maybe in Mexico.
That name R just reinforces his suspicion. This random, terrifying encounter cracks open a potential family secret.
Yeah, it's a completely different kind of desert horror. Not monsters or arsonists, but the unsettling possibility that someone close to you isn't who you thought they were.
So, 3 stories. Mine shaft terror, camping nightmare, highway shakedown with a family twist.
all set in the desert. It really makes you think about the desert itself, doesn't it? As this liminal space.
Exactly. Beautiful, isolating, but also a place where the normal rules can feel suspended, where danger and the unknown can kind of thrive.
And you see how fear gets amplified out there. Unfamiliar sounds, strange sights in the middle of nowhere.
Your mind just races, doesn't it? The lack of context, the isolation, it feeds the fear.
We saw that in the mine shaft and the campsite stories especially. That ambiguity allows primal fears to surface.
Yeah, while the third story points more towards human malevolence, even if it's wrapped in mystery, the other two leave the threat really undefined.
Which can be almost more unsettling. The creature, the arsonist, what were they?
The questions just linger, and that's part of the power of these accounts.
Plus, that theme in the last story, hidden histories. How the past can just erupt into the present unexpectedly.
Challenging your whole understanding of someone you thought you knew.
So, for you listening, as we've walked through these desert experiences,
From the adrenaline rush of those kids escaping the mine,
to the sheer vulnerability of the couple by the fire,
and the strange family questions raised on that highway.
these stories really drive home how even seemingly empty landscapes can hold these sudden, sometimes dangerous encounters.
Yeah, what stands out is how the unknown just dials up the fear factor, and how that feeling, that uncertainty, can stick with you.
Definitely. The questions that don't get answered are often the most haunting.
Which brings us to a final thought. These narratives, they're different, but they all touch on encountering something beyond our usual grasp.
Right. The thing in the mine, the unseen attacker at the campsite, the hinted at criminal connections, they all exist in that realm of the unexplained.
So maybe consider this. What is it about the desert? Its vastness, its silence, its often harsh history? What makes it such fertile ground for these kinds of unsettling stories?
These encounters that leave so many questions unanswered.
Perhaps the real horror isn't always the immediate threat itself, but the lingering mystery, the things we don't know and maybe never will.
Something to think about. Thanks for diving deep with us today.